Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances.
Hello and welcome once again to the Blueprint, Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, with new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this program. If you're on YouTube, hit the bell. You'll be notified when new content is made available. As you can see, you probably guessed our topic of the day. To talk about this and much, much more, we have Glen Motz, the Member of Parliament for Medicine Hat, Cardston, Warner, and of course Bob Zimmer, the co-chair of the Parliamentary Outdoor Caucus, also the Member of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, and Northern Rockies. Thanks for coming on, gentlemen.
Great to be here, Jamie.
All right, pretty serious topic. Again, the Liberals playing politics. And first of all, to me, this seems like a government in desperation mode. But for those just paying attention who might not have heard the news or just finding out now or trying to figure out what it actually means, what does it mean? What does this announcement mean?
Well, it means that the Liberals are again trying to deflect away from their own poor record on anything, and it's a further attack on law-abiding firearm owners in Canada, and it does nothing to improve public safety. The criminal element in this country don't care about the laws, and don't care about anything to do except for their own purpose. And 85% of all gun crimes in Canada use an illegal firearm brought in from the United States. That's what our law enforcement are telling us. Right. So when you go after law-abiding gun owners, who are not the problem and have never been the problem of crime in this country, you're misguided as a government. And that's exactly what this is. It's a misguided approach to appease an element of their voting base.
No, Bob, we were talking just before the show that this announcement, like their previous ones on firearms or crime, this is actually another step to make Canadians less safe. Why? Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah, actually, Justin Trudeau, by doing confiscating law-abiding firearms owners, the 1,500 before and another 324, actually makes Canadians less safe. And people ask, well, how is that possible? Because they're putting those millions and going to be billions of dollars towards confiscating law-abiding firearms owners, firearms like myself and like us, instead of going after what the real problem is, and it's a porous border like Glenn had talked about, where those firearms are coming across. We know that only 1% of containers are scanned, and even rail was just announced that no scans are being done for rail cars that cross the border. Justin Trudeau could be actually spending the money on those areas and really stopping that flow of firearms into Canada, and he's doing nothing towards actually fixing the problem. He's making us less safe in what he's doing.
And to support that, Jamie, violent gun crime has increased 116% in Canada since this government took over, and since since the Order in Council, since the C-21 and C-71 of 2017, 2018, 2020, it's not working. Yeah. And and the stats show it's not. Homicides are the highest they've ever been. And it's not working, as Bob says. These resources could be properly spent, more appropriately spent on dealing with the problem. That's criminals and our porous border.
Yeah, and I think Justin Trudeau used to get away with this when he was first running for election. He actually said he wasn't going to target law-abiding firearms owners when he was running for leadership. But what we're seeing, and I think Canadians are seeing after 9 years of the Liberals, NDP Liberals in power, our streets are just simply less safe. That mom that lives in Vancouver or Toronto doesn't believe what he's saying anymore. Yeah. And Grandpa Joe, isn't the problem. Somebody's grandpa that goes and has a firearm in his house and goes hunting once a year for sustenance to fill his freezer with food isn't the problem. But Justin Trudeau keeps attacking Grandpa Joe, and he shouldn't be.
And the other thing that with the attack, not only is he attacking law-abiding firearm owners, but he's appeasing the criminal. You look at C-75 and C-5. Complete bail failures on repeat violent offenders continue to get out. And then look what they did. And I'm just going to use some examples here in C5, Jamie. They reduced the penalties for various gun crimes, like using a firearm in the commission of an offense. They reduced the penalty for that. Yeah. Shooting at someone, they reduced the penalty for that. illegal possession of a firearm that's already illegal. It's like where do Canadians how can Canadians be safe when the actual laws that are supposed to at least dissuade people from committing crimes are actually going, you know what, I can commit as many crimes as I want. I'm going to be out of jail the next within hours again, and the penalties if I do get caught are becoming less and less of a deterrent to our criminals.
I also look at this about our independence as well, right? The carbon tax and all the anti-agriculture policies the government has put in place through Justin Trudeau. People are going to hunt for their food in many cases, right? And now they're taking this option away from hunters, right? Like they can't afford groceries, but now you can't go hunt, right? I guess you could use bow or whatever, but at the same time, there's hurdles in front of you to actually provide for yourself and your family.
Well, and even Justin Trudeau, he's defected First Nations and even northern communities that use firearms just to go, again, fill their freezers with, right? Because even though he's saying that potentially they could still own these particular firearms, no retailer in Canada will ever stock the parts, and they won't be able to service that firearm in the future. So he's affected a lot of First Nations and really rankled a bunch of First Nations by what he's doing here. And what we're concerned about is there's even more bans coming, and some of these key firearms that many use in the northern communities, especially the SKS is the example we've heard about, is we're always watching for it to appear on that list because it likely will under Justin Trudeau.
Well, what did Trudeau say in, I think it was December of 2022? He says, yeah, we're going to probably be going after more hunting rifles.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's showing it over and over again.
Okay, so the left doesn't seem to like the police. So who's going to go after these guns?
Yeah.
Who's going to have to go after these firearms?
Well, one of their ideas, and I did some videos on it, is drop them off at your local Canada Post outlet.
Yeah.
So whether it's Shoppers Drug Mart or it's the Canada Post office in your particular community, Trudeau is saying, and they've actually made changes in regulation to make that happen. So just imagine. And Canada Post workers are not happy about this, by the way, nor is the CEO. They've all said, look, we're very concerned about the safety.
Yeah.
Just because it isn't, bringing it in a certain way and dropping it on the counter. It's bringing a firearm. It in various stages, it might be loaded. It might be something else. It's in an unsafe condition. And now these Canada Post workers have to deal with that. So that's why, you can just tell they haven't really thought this through too much, but they have an agenda and they want to confiscate firearms for Canadians, even though it's unsafe to do so.
But this is what happens when government gets desperate, right? They're just throwing anything they can find to try to get a bump in the polls.
That's right.
And this is sad when they go after, I don't want to say target, but they go after law-abiding people. I guess it's easy, right? And most law-abiding people will probably follow this because we follow the law. But we fundamentally disagree with this.
Yeah.
Even their so-called buyback program. I don't know about you, but I didn't buy my firearms from the government, so I can't sell them back, right?
It is not a buyback.
It's not a buyback.
It is a confiscation.
Yeah.
Period. Simple as that. The thing that we have to remember is, Canadians are, by generally, very, law-abiding, and certainly the Canadian firearm community has shown, the stats show that they are 3 and 4 times less likely to commit a crime than the average Canadian, not the criminal Canadian, than the average Canadian. Right. So it's lazy government, it's lazy policy to go after law-abiding, firearm owners, especially when the statistics are so clear that is not the element of the population that puts the public at risk.
Right.
And all the money that they're spending, all the effort they're putting into to this, as Bob said, those resources could be deployed elsewhere, and it will make, what they've done is will not improve public safety in this country one bit. Law enforcement are telling that to us as political leaders across the country. Listen, your gun bans do not work. Right. Focus on criminals. Focus on the justice system, the bail reform system and the penalties, so that it actually has an impact on public safety. Yeah. And their approach is not working, and it is political.
Yeah, and I think Canadians are seeing, we're all seeing on our social media feeds, these mall cash grabs and robberies that are happening. Seems like endless feeds that we're seeing this happen on a regular basis, and they're not getting arrested, or they get arrested and are being let out by Justin Trudeau's get out of jail free cards. But the cost is, again, getting back to what the registry they promised was supposed to be $2 million, ended up being $2 billion. Gary Mauser is an expert on firearms. He's estimated that this confiscation program could cost $6.7 billion and more.
Wow.
So just imagine all those billions of dollars going to something, again, us law-abiding folks, as Glenn said, we obey the law, probably the best in the country, and the stats prove that, as
Yeah.
firearms owners and license holders. And here you're attacking us law-abiding folks, and meanwhile, they're letting sort of lawlessness reign in Canada. And I think Canadians aren't buying it anymore from Justin Trudeau. But again, we believe that those resources should be put to stop the porous border that, again, Justin Trudeau has established. And really, I know Pierre Poilievre is wanting to get the guns where they're coming from and
Right.
stop them right there,
Right.
and as a result, make Canada a lot more safe.
Yeah.
Canadians are telling, I know my emails have been very, very clear, speaking with constituents, and I'm sure it is for you gentlemen as well.
Yeah.
They want a change in government. And this is just another example of where they consider the government overreach. They're desperate, as you had said before, Jamie. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't know how to go about what they're doing. We all applaud efforts to improve public safety. But who do they consult? How do they figure that this is actually going to have a difference? And now we're 5, 6, 7 years into this whole process, and we're seeing the exact opposite effect
Right.
to what they were intending to improve public safety, and it isn't improving anything.
And spending billions of dollars collecting hunting rifles like this, or like this.
Yeah.
Right, ones that are probably in your grandpa's gun safe at home that he goes and hunts every winter with.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just it's wrong thinking, it's wrong-headed, and it's again, it just makes Canada a lot less safe by doing so.
You know, I just wanted, when Bob mentioned just a couple of minutes ago here about, the government wanted Canada Post to be a depot for these. You don't think criminals know that?
Oh, exactly. It'll be
You don't
like a
think the
moving
criminals are
target,
going to
really.
target,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
how to get access to firearms, and there's rules around safe storage and all the sort of things that firearm owners appreciate the privilege it is to own a firearm in this country, and they take that role very, very seriously. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen, and Canadians are going, you know what, we need to change, as I said before, to stop this nonsense.
Well, and think about the unsafety that brings. So here it's at somebody's home where it's been stored safely for probably 50 years. And now it's put in this situation, it's put into an unsafe situation where who knows, the security around Canada Post, and even the Canada Post CEO has said, like, our systems really aren't set up to really, deal with this kind of safe level of security that's necessary. And so they're actually bringing it to an unsafe situation. It's crazy. And meanwhile, Justin Trudeau is saying what he's doing is supposed to be better for Canadians. Well, it isn't. And again, I think Canadians now, after 9 years, aren't buying it anymore.
They see through it.
Yeah.
So what can people do? So people are frustrated. They know a government in desperation is not necessarily making the best decisions for Canadians.
Right.
They're basically doing anything to survive.
Yeah.
What can be done aside from an election? And hopefully that comes as soon as possible.
I think around the election, I think the NDP, we saw some that were on the SECU committee when we were asking questions about the last ban that was brought in. And the NDP pretended like they supported their rural members. And in the end, they just voted for Justin Trudeau and all this policy. So I think putting pressure on NDP members, people that are hunters, sport shooters, put pressure on your NDP members of parliament. I think that's how we're going to get sort of that argument. They're going to have to stand up for their constituents.
Right.
We sure hope they will. But short of that, I think it's writing letters to the Prime Minister and Liberal MPs, just letting them know that they're very upset. Like Dominic LeBlanc, of all people, has a lot of rural folks in his riding, and he's just thrown them all under the bus by doing this, and he's the face for this now. Contact their offices and let them know how unhappy you are with policies like this, because again, it's going to make us less safe.
And I think Bob answered that question very, very well, but an area that we haven't touched on today is we talked about hunters, sport shooters.
Yeah.
Yep.
The whole, I got an email on Friday from a person from Southern Alberta who's a board of governors for a Fish and Game Association in Southern Alberta. 3 Canadians have been selected to go to a PPC sport shooting competition in Czechoslovakia in the spring of 2025. They're done.
Yeah.
Their firearms are now prohibited. All their equipment is prohibited. They can't transport. They're paperweights.
Yeah.
And he's very, very frustrated, this individual. And that's just 3 individuals for this one competition. But when you look at all the other sport shooters in this country whose firearms either have already or will be affected by this ban. And as Bob said before, we saw Dominic at the opening of this talk about, there's 324, but he talks about models and variants. But what he doesn't say, and their own website talks about it, is this impacts 14,000
Over
plus
14,000.
firearms,
Yeah.
right? And so, there's a wide swath of this, again, that impacts not only hunters and farmers, but sport shooters who are all law-abiding Canadians. And I can't repeat it enough. Public safety will not be improved by this. And if we're trying, as parliamentarians, our role is to serve the public and serve them well, including public safety.
Yeah.
This does not even come close to meeting the mark. It's a waste of taxpayer money to target Canadians who are already law-abiding. Let's spend those resources on the criminals and on improving our justice system to hold those who are criminals accountable for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, we're pretty much out of time, but as you know, the guests always get the last word. We started with Glen, so why don't we go to Bob?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Jamie and Glenn, to be here. But I'll give a shout out to the sport shooting community out there. I'm a sport shooter myself too, and we've raised our kids, taking the guns out on a Saturday, and all of our kids. So from our 3 boys and our daughter, even when they were small, they've all learned how to safely fire a firearm. And it's part of what we did as our culture too, right? It's not just go fishing one weekend, we went sport shooting the next. It was part of who we are as Canadians, and we did it safely. We had a lot of fun. And again, it's that whole hundreds of years of that sort of sport shooting culture mixed with hunting culture. The salt of the earth folks in Canada that do this and practice this. And again, Justin Trudeau shouldn't be targeting our community. And we know under a government led by Pierre Poilievre that will stop and will support our hunters and sport shooters.
Glen?
Jamie, thank you again for the opportunity. And Bob, it's always a pleasure
Yeah,
with your knowledge and skill to be part of this. I can't say it enough. Canadians want change. This country needs change, and not just for economic reasons, but here's an example of the overreach of a government who are desperate to try and change the channel on their own failures. And, a conservative government, common sense conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre will address the issues on public safety, and we will focus our resources specifically on those that are the problem, criminals in our justice system, and not on law-abiding Canadians.
That seems like common sense to me.
Sure does.
Certainly does.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Glen Motz, the Member of Parliament for Medicine Hat, Karsten Warner, also retired law enforcement. Also Bob Zimmer, the Member of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, and Northern Rockies, also the co-chair of the Parliamentary Outdoor Caucus. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. I'm sure we'll do another episode to follow up as we follow this throughout the cycle as this moves along, unfortunately. So if you liked what you've heard, what you saw today, please comment, subscribe, and share this program. You can tell your friends. They can download it on platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. You name it, it is out there. New content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next week, remember, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.